What up, everybody, and welcome to this week's What's on Kickstarter. Today, we're going to be taking a look at the great, good, and not so good decks that are live on Kickstarter right now. But before,
Dude, I don't think we have a lot of great decks this week, do we?
I mean, you know what? You'll just have to stick around and find out. There could be one, there could be a ton. I don't know, man. It's going to be an interesting one, that's for sure. This was a heavy week. I think this is probably the biggest week, or maybe the second biggest week we've seen so far this year.
Yeah, what are we looking at? 16 decks or something?
Something like that, man. It's a crazy one. And then you'll also have to just stick around to see what fun picks Steve and I picked out this week. But before we even jump into it, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Don't want to miss out on all this fun What's on Kickstarter goodness.
That's for damn sure.
Let's take a quick word from our sponsor here.
Join us as we celebrate the marvelous and fascinating things that surround us, all in the palm of your hands. You will be mesmerized. Follow us on Instagram at Marvelous Decks and at marvelousdecks.com.
How would you like museum quality prints of Stockholm 17's award-winning House of the Rising Spade court cards on your wall? Well, MuseumKits.com has teamed up with Lorenzo of Stockholm 17 to bring you these beautiful prints of art. MuseumKits.com is owned and operated by card collectors who really know what the community loves. Printed on archival paper with pigment inks, these prints will last a lifetime. So make sure to head to MuseumKits.com/S17 to check out these amazing House of the Rising Spades court card prints today.
Bro, those sound dope.
They are amazingly dope, I'm not gonna lie. So make sure to head down there and check them out.
Yay, let's get into this week's Kickstarter, dude.
Let's do it, man. First up for this week's great deck, we have the Square playing cards. I gotta say, man, this is a really unique, I'd say, cardistry-based deck just based on that central element there. The campaign,
That's fun.
It really is. It's very artistic. The campaign itself is really well thrown together. Obviously, you can see rolling right in with a story. Not only does it give you that personalized touch of Miguel's story itself, but it also tells you why a square. Which I think anyone first looking at this is going to be like, why a square? Great hook there. I think he really
Why
does.
not?
Yeah, no, I think he does a great job with it.
Yeah.
Rolls right into the specs, and I love the fact that he's hitting on printed by USPCC, fulfilled by gamblers. You're looking at a great deck here, traditionally cut, two-way back design. A really cool fact, too, that, hey, he's throwing a sticker in right there. Really trying to give all of that information that everyone needs from the jump, which I think is awesome. He also even touches on the fact that it's going to be thin crushed stock there as well. So that really ties a little bit to the higher than usual, though I'd almost say even a little bit low goal. Or a 2,500 print run with crushed stock. That would be one area I'd say to make this campaign even better, would be to just make sure that that goal is on point there with shipping and everything. Easy to get caught up real quick there, especially on a first campaign.
That's for damn sure.
Dude, I mean, yeah, without a doubt. That being said, he rolls right into the tuck and the cards there. Shows you all of the fun aspects of this deck, which I love, these little squares that are encompassing individual pips across certain cards and the negative effect of it. So instead of being, you know, a red diamond, it's actually a red square with a white diamond in it. Very cool looking, very eye-catching. Probably maybe detracts a little bit from the magic side of things or the everyday play side of things, but again, being a cardistry focused deck, I think that makes perfect sense.
Yeah, I would have liked to have seen it maybe scattered out throughout the deck rather than on every card.
Yeah.
There's just a lot of squares.
So I think it's only for the number 4s.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
All right, that works.
Yeah, so which makes sense. A square has 4 sides. You know, it really ties into the theme, which I really like. But yeah, it is a little bit of a different vibe to it. But yeah, so it is kind of not overly done, which I think is great. And I love the fact that it carries through to those large central ace pips as well. And you have the interesting little like
funky joker.
Yeah.
Or is that an ad card?
It looks like an ad card,
an ad card,
and I like it because it's very much like a kind of MC Escher-esque style to it, like very geometric, kind of impossible puzzle, which I think is really cool. Yeah. There you go, creating the square flower. That's really fun, man.
Yeah.
This is a really well put together campaign. The visuals are perfect, and I have to say, not overly done. I think from the court card point of view, little bit small, but they're all relatively standard courts, so I think it serves the purpose there. And
Yeah, you get a little idea of the color, which
yeah.
is enough for me.
So the one thing I will say here too, and now that we look here, we can see that the thin crushed B stock is actually a stretch goal. The one thing I would say is just to put the word
Stretch goal right
stretch
there.
goal, yeah. So and I guess the wording is somewhat there, but I would say to be definitive about it. Thin crushed B stock at 3,900 Australian dollar stretch goal.
Oh, yeah.
You know, clears up any potential miscommunication there. And with that in mind, that $8,000 initial goal is spot on. Really like the fact that they include a video in this as well, showing this in motion for cardistry, which I think is really exciting. And for a cardistry deck, I think makes an impact. Being such a visual art form, I think people really want to see this in motion to make sure that they understand how it's going to look and to entice them to buy it.
Yeah, great job. What's the price it coming in at?
Price point, this thing is coming in at $17 shipped. Can't even go wrong. That's a spot on price point there. Yeah. Oh. And we appreciate the shout out there. You know, throughout this campaign, there was a little bit of back and forth. You know, we've looked at the pre a couple times, and we really do appreciate Miguel's energy and effort he's put into this deck for sure.
Crushing it. Good luck, and you know, definitely, if this is your thing, back this project.
Yeah, man, I dig it. I always love seeing new cardistry designs come out because I really think they're innovative in a very similar kind of field. You know, it's a new niche while it's still touching on playing cards. So good luck, Miguel.
Yeah, I like the fact that it doesn't have just a white background either.
Absolutely.
That's where it has a little bit of detail, which is cool.
Absolutely. Well, good luck. Let's see what we've got next here. This week's good deck is the Chicago cards, Chicago themed playing cards. And I'll be very honest, you know, this is actually a really good campaign. It's right on the threshold of good to great. They touch on a lot of the stuff being the story aspect of it. They tie it in with it being, you know, Chicago themed. They really show off the design. They do a pretty good job of it. I'd say throughout the entire thing, maybe they could have consolidated the images a little bit better to help it flow. But as you can see, there's a lot of missing text. Gallery, jokers, like these interdispersed words don't help break it up a lot. I think a little bit of text would have helped bring this to build out the story throughout the entire campaign. The one thing to me that stands out is having never been to Chicago, I don't personally have an affinity with the city. So I almost immediately feel excluded from wanting to back this deck. But with that in mind, the story is an opportunity to convince people that they should back your deck, even if they've never been to Chicago. So not only should it be that upper section, but allow it to continue to build up that momentum throughout the campaign. Because again, story is just a nice way of saying your sales pitch. This really is a sales pitch at the end of the day. I love the fact that they include a sticker. It's a nice little add-on. Printed by Make Playing Cards, and they're going to be self-fulfilling. I like the fact that they touch on those things. Some stretch goals, especially because they already hit their goal, would have been helpful there. But I also think that the one thing to consider in this situation using Make Playing Cards is touching on how many you plan on printing. That makes that goal a little more understandable with Make Playing Cards because there's such a wide stretch between the cost at 100 decks or the cost at 1,000 decks. So it really would have made it a little more clear there. And I think even price point wise, this is at, again, 17 shipped. The one thing I will say...
That's cheap, even, you know, if you're going to buy, whatever, 100 decks, you know, and that comes in at, what, $5 or, you know, I think...
And at a $4 shipping price, I think the one thing that isn't being considered there, shipping across country in the United States usually is about $3.85 on the high end. The problem you run into there is you're not accounting for boxing or packaging, which, you know, on the bulk end could be another 30, 40, 50 cents per package, which means that you're already losing money on that shipping. And for such a small goal, you want to make sure that you're really breaking even. Those are some of the things that really stand out to us about why this, while a really close to being great campaign, needs a little bit more of a push to hit that great mark. Really selling your deck throughout the whole thing. Don't rely solely on the fact that, like, oh, you like Chicago, I like Chicago, let's back this deck. You also want people who have never been to Chicago but are curious about the history or curious about the city to want to back this deck because it...
Bro, where's the bean? I want to see the bean.
It's on the Ace of Hearts there.
Dude, I need to see the bean bigger. Like, everybody knows the bean.
Yeah. There you go.
Put the bean in a picture and hold the card next to it.
Ace
Do
of
something
hearts.
that makes me connect to it.
Yeah.
You know, I've been to Chicago. I'm not a huge, like, I don't need Chicago. This is Chicago. If I want a Chicago, I want a bean. I want to see a bean picture.
And the other thing I will say too, and this is an interesting kind of thing, there was a Chicago deck already done, which was a beautifully done Bicycle Chicago deck, which I think sets a very high bar for how to go about doing a Chicago deck. But again, don't limit yourself based on who you think your audience is. Try and make your audience as broad as possible while making your campaign still feasible. So in reality, yeah, there's 39 backers here. 39 people love Chicago enough to back this deck. That could have been much higher if this was a Chicago-themed deck that spoke to the masses. So something to consider there. I think, Tyler, you have a great job here with a fully funded campaign. So, you know, congratulations. But
yeah, I love the color. I think the color is great. I think that I love the designs. I think it's super creative. I think he did a great job.
Yeah.
I think just adding a little bit more to the story, I think, like you said, would be great.
Okay. So good luck on the rest of it, and keep that in mind for future campaigns, man. Reach further than what you think you can do, because it'll always pay off. And for this week's Needs Help deck, we have the Witch Dictionary Magic Circles style cards. That is a mouthful, man. So, relatively small goal on this. We'll have to see who's going to be printing, but I think all things considered, unless this is a very limited run, that is a pretty minor goal. 2,500 doesn't get you much. Has some momentum behind it. Halfway funded, a little bit more than halfway funded, but 36 backers, 35 days to go. We've seen a lot of research that basically says anywhere from a 14 to a 30-day campaign is going to be the most beneficial. Anything beyond that really just ends up dragging out the time it takes for you to get your funding and filling going. So in this case, I would have said probably a 30-day campaign would have been more than enough as a first-time creator. Interesting back design.
Unless you have amazing stretch goals that are being launched based on time. That's a probably only thing that I would say is worth stretching it out a little bit if you have amazing stretch goals.
I mean, you could always just fit those into a 30-day window too, which, all things considered, timing it around the campaign versus timing your campaign around your stretch goals, unless they are really integral to the campaign, 14 and 30 seem to be the go-tos, and they seem to work for most major creators. But with that in mind, let's take a look at what we got here. If you have ever seen witches performing necromancy in movies or on media platforms, you'll discover that the styles of their magic circles can vary considerably with different functions. Interesting story, great hook, I guess, but that's really kind of the end of the sell until you start seeing cards. I think there's a lot that needs to just be built out here. To me, the story isn't necessarily cohesive. It's not selling me on anything. It's explaining more than anything, and that's fine. But you also need that healthy mix of explanation and sales of convincing someone that they want to back this. From what I've seen, the back design actually looks really interesting. I think there's a lot of potential with it. Though the tuck, I assume this is the tuck here.
Yeah, I don't know what that bee waffle design is.
Yeah, it seems a little like inconsistent with what we're seeing here. So the one thing out the gate, this just doesn't seem to be exciting or tied in with it. And you can see it doesn't touch on it until the tuck design, but it doesn't actually explain the tuck design at all, which to me is important because it's not cohesive with the deck. So with that in mind, I would say really think about building out your story here, making sure you're touching on what makes this a unique piece of art and why people should be interested in it.
Yeah, I mean, it's relatively cool.
Yeah, it's not bad. It really, again, it has potential. I would like to see, even the aces and the court cards and everything, which I haven't seen the actual, there we go. The one thing I will say, and this is really preference, but there is a large push, at least in the collectors community, towards human figures being on the court cards. People really do seem to gravitate towards that more so than abstract or non-human quirks. That is something that can impact funding. Something to consider when designing these. I do enjoy the idea of, them being thematically related to the magic circles, but it is something to consider. Maybe those could have been witches,
That would have been cool. You could have had so much fun creating those court cards
Yeah.
around
And
this theme.
I do like the explanation here as well of the back design, but I think the one thing that really stands out to me, a limited 1,000 set of which dictionaries will be produced. So at 1,000 decks, your goal is a $2.50 cost, which at 1,000 decks isn't even your cost to print these decks. So that immediately to me stands out as a red flag, because your goal can't cover how much it's going to cost you to make these, no matter who your printer is. Whether you're going with MPC, USPCC, Legends, NPC, anybody, these are not going to be covering the cost with your goal there. That being said, there is no mention of the printer. There is no mention of the fulfillment. And looking at the cost of the deck, like, it's just crazy expensive. $28 shipped for a standard deck that, while does have some artistic potential, just isn't sold in a way that excites me or hooks me on this. I think, again, this is another kind of case of someone really relying on people immediately being interested in this deck without having to be sold on it, and that limits your base to 36 backers. So
Yeah.
I think this actually could have had some great momentum behind it should they have gone a little bit more of an expansive route in building out this campaign, marketing it, and really trying to sell it. With that, in mind, being a collectors-oriented deck, really, I haven't seen anything about this on social media. So really making sure you're marketing a deck to get out there and get visibility on it and draw in backers is extremely important.
Good luck.
Yeah, good luck. So let's take a quick run through of what's new this week. Another great deck here, the Visions playing cards. Obviously,
I know that deck.
Yeah, obviously this deck is great because Steve is the man behind Wounded Corner and the Visions playing cards. That being said, I also lended a hand in helping write a lot of this. So we have thoroughly looked at this. And as with any great campaign, though, and all the experience in the world building it or looking at campaigns, doesn't mean it's perfect. There are surely things that can be tweaked in this. Have no doubt about that, but realize that even a great campaign will never be perfect. There's no such thing as a perfect campaign for everyone out there. Great is good. It's all about how you sell and market your campaigns, and Steve has done a phenomenal job with this one. So
I mean, and this is for anybody. It's just, it takes time, time and time again. Put the time in, look it over again, hand it off to 5 people and have them look it over. And I think that's just where we're kind of missing, I think, with some campaigns.
Absolutely. Next up, another great deck this week. We have the Frostbite and Rebirth 52 playing cards. This is actually the final deck in the series, final 2 decks in the series, and very similar to the previous campaigns, really well thought out, well built. I think one of the things to me that really stands out is it would be nice to see a little bit of a specs recap, a little bit higher on it. It feels like this campaign is a little disjointed with its ordering. We're about halfway through, and I've already seen a lot of information. It feels like the whole campaign should be done right here, and we're only about halfway through the page. Bringing the features up would have helped, for sure on this one, made them a little bit more built out, or even put them a little bit below the story as well. So, nicely done. Congratulations to David, and good luck. Another great campaign this week is the Cenozoic playing cards by Ape Card Co. So another sophomore release from Ash Marlowe here. Great looking deck, really plays on the ape playing card theme there. Has a really interesting kind of Art Deco back design to it as well. I really like what he's done with this. And from a cost point of view, $19 shipped. If this is your style, this is a great deal on this deck. Ash, being a magician, really builds out for the Magic community and includes a lot of great value with his campaign. So this is something, if you're a magician who knows Ash's work, definitely check it out. Next up, another great deck this week, the War in Heaven playing cards. I have to say, I really enjoyed the way they built out their story in this. I think they did a good job. You can see the Kickstarter spacing issue strikes here. For some reason, the editor is terrible and always adds extra spaces. Something to consider, though, when building out this campaign is even those small things can break up the continuity. So when you're playing with the editor, anytime it adds those extra spaces, make sure to double delete them and then save again, and it'll add one back in. But it'll be a little more consistent there. I think they did a great job with the overview on this, and even their price point on this deck. $21 shipped for what looks to be a pretty well designed and ornate deck. Very nicely done. Next up, we have the Shadows and Dust playing cards. Another great deck this week.
There are so many great decks this week.
There really are, man. I have to say, we teased this a little bit, but there are so many great decks, and really a lot of amazing thought has not only been put into the art behind a lot of these decks, but the campaigns themselves. The one thing that stands out to me on this one, and Steve and I discussed this earlier, is just a lot of images without text. And while that's fine, I think it's important to help break up the continuity a little bit, because what you end up getting is the second someone hits here, they start scrolling real fast, and all of a sudden, I'm on my computer, so it doesn't go that fast, but all of a sudden I'm down here, and I know nothing about this campaign, and all of a sudden I'm at the bottom, and there's a lot of text. So trying to throw in text throughout the campaign helps break it up a little bit, and really helps people pace themselves through it. Otherwise, this is a beautiful looking campaign. Anyone who's into that Roman period gladiatorial artwork, definitely check out this campaign. Next up, another great campaign. We have the Hydrogen deck B2 Deuterium Isotope. I almost had to figure that out there. I couldn't remember. I wanted to say Deutronium, and I knew that wasn't right. So Deuterium Isotope from the ever amazing Nick Nisko. This is another great campaign. Obviously, this is Nick's 4th campaign. He's really got a really well built out understanding of not only the campaign itself, but the marketing side of things. Nick's posts in conjunction with his campaign being built out always drive a lot of visibility to it, building up the hype in the beginning, and then driving continued visibility throughout the campaign, which is always super important. I think the one thing here too is Nick took an interesting approach, which we haven't seen before, of a campaign snapshot, which is kind of like an expanded portion of the features, but covering everything there. And I think the one thing to me that stands out about this is it takes a long time to get to the story. And I think it's super important to make sure that the story is one of the first things you see, because it's your hook. If and again, this is the 4th release in the Elemental playing card lineup and the first V2 in the series, as well as the first limited edition in the series. Very much a short elevator pitch, but isn't hooking someone necessarily into the campaign if they haven't backed in the past. What I would have said is something along the lines of like, do you love science? A question that makes people think and says, yeah, I love science. Let me scroll through some more. Campaign snapshot. Perfect. Having to make sure that first story bit is a hook is super important if you're going to take this very abbreviated approach before the campaign. Otherwise, great campaign, man. Good luck. You're crushing it. Next up, we have the Yaksha playing cards from Card Experiment. So again, another great campaign. Card Experiment has been putting out some banger decks, and I really love a lot of their Japanese-style artwork. The one thing to me that again stands out here, a lot of images without much in the way of text to help break it up, and they've even included images or text in the images that probably would have actually been better beneath it as captions to just add a little bit of a pause. Stop people from just continuously scrolling through without taking stuff in. The other thing to me that stands out for this one, and this is somewhat of a warning flag with it, is they actually haven't fully fulfilled their previous campaign yet. And to me, being a 3-time creator, yes, you've established some reputation. It's a little bit less of a concern, but it's still a concern nonetheless. And I do think a lot of people will not back a new campaign if the previous one hasn't fulfilled. So something to consider as a creator. Was it worth jumping this out a month before you're going to fulfill the previous campaign? Or could you have waited until May to launch this one? So, good luck. And another great campaign. Man, I feel like we've used all the great campaigns for this month. I don't know about you, man, but it's a lot of them. So,
yeah, it is.
The Alpha and Omega playing cards, 3 decks of church history cards by Elephant playing cards.
This has great story. It just goes on forever.
This is a big one, man.
It just goes on and on forever. Like, it's never-ending campaign.
And some of that consolidation could have come in the image as well. Building those images out in ways that kind of weave nicely through the story, but also can be consolidated to show a lot of this in smaller format is super important when, ultimately, again, the whole purpose is to get people to ingest as much information as possible. I personally can make it through about probably 2/3 of this campaign before I'm like, all right, this is a lot. I think I've got everything I need, but that could also mean that you're leaving important information out of the campaign or out of the backer's mind because it's below that cutoff line. And that cutoff line is going to vary significantly between person, but also between medium. People treat Kickstarter differently on their PC or on their computer versus on their mobile device. And you want to make sure that your campaign is as mobile friendly as possible, especially because it looks like we're somehow back into court cards.
I mean, like, people have to remember 75% of everybody looking at this is on mobile. So that's like just something to keep in mind. You know, most people are looking at a mobile phone when they're looking at the internet.
I don't know if it's that high, but
100% that high.
I'm pretty sure it's a 50-50 split for Kickstarter, but it may be 75%, so let's run with it. But either way, good luck on this campaign.
Yeah, crushing it.
Next up, we have the Aton playing cards. Another great deck this week. Man, I'm really excited to see so many creators putting out solid campaigns, though. I think it's so important, and it shows in the funding numbers for a lot of these campaigns just how important it is to put together well thought out campaigns.
Yeah, great. It's kind of cool seeing too, you know, more great campaigns than need help.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. This is a great one. I think a lot of it too is just, again, building out that text throughout the images throughout the campaign, maybe removing some of the redundant images, but otherwise, excellent job. And I think a lot of times too, when you have a deck that is basically a recolor for your second deck, you actually have the option to remove a lot of the images that are redundant there, which it looks like they did, but they probably could have even trimmed it down a little bit more. But I do think they did a great job consolidating their campaign here as well.
Yeah.
And always a great campaign here. I'll be shocked one day.
Riffle Shuffle.
Yeah, I'll be shocked one day if we see a non-great Riffle Shuffle campaign. And that's because Kevin Yu and the forces behind Riffle Shuffle know how to make a Kickstarter campaign. The only thing I even want to say on this one is if you're a beginner looking to find a campaign to mirror yours after, whether it be formatting wise, price point wise, or some of the little more minute details of Kickstarter, Riffle Shuffle is always a go-to source. So great campaign here this week, guys. And
cool deck too.
Another great campaign, the Entwined Volume 2 all playing card decks from Old Gravity. I gotta say, if you're a fan of this one, it is a good-looking deck. It really has some amazingly ornate artwork there. And I think, you know,
very gaudy.
It's very, yes, it's very, I don't even know if I want to say gaudy. It's very elegant, maybe? I don't know.
Sure, that works too.
I feel like gaudy has a negative connotation to it, and I think this is just a beautiful piece of art. If this is your style, it's awesome. I love the creativity of the box there. I think they did a really nice job with it. I think it's a interesting way to kind of show off decks themselves without having to buy a half brick box, you know?
Yeah. It's interesting because I was actually looking at a box similar to that style for my collector's box.
Nice. Well, good luck on that one. Our first good campaign this week, the Midnight playing cards. Again, I think this actually has a really interesting potential to it. It's a fun-looking campaign, but not enough information and too many images without information. This is geared towards magicians, I think is one of the things that stands out to me. It is a marked deck, so it really makes it non-playable. I like the fact that they touch on printed by USPC and fulfilled by gamblers, so they've thought out the core components there. But where are the features? And the story itself just needs to really go beyond just that first paragraph there. I think that's one thing that people sometimes forget, is that the story itself is the entire campaign. It's start to finish a sales pitch. And with that in mind, I really think that the story should have been more cohesive throughout this whole thing to really tie people into it. Again, the other big thing I will say is, as a first-time creator, your risks and challenges should not be 2 sentences. You need to show that you've thought about all of the potential pitfalls that this campaign could have, so that your backers feel like you've actually put in the work that is necessary to make this a reality. I think that's super important. Ultimately, too, you know, I did see this little feature section here, but I do think this should have probably been brought up here and touched on some of the aspects in the design category there just to make it a little more, built out. Maybe put it between inspiration and design to make it a little more consistent. But good luck. And for our last deck this week, we have another good deck, the Deckin Poker deck. So Steve and I obviously are not familiar with a lot of the themes that come across decks, and so we had to double check to see if this was a licensing issue deck, but it turns out that the creator here, Chris Van Dyke, is in fact the creator of the Deckin fantasy world, so well within his rights to create this deck. Interesting deck. I do think the one thing that stands out to me is focusing on category that you already have is all well and good if you have a very large fan base, but if not, you want to make this appeal to as many people as possible who may not know the world of Deckin. With that in mind, building some of that story into this campaign is super important to draw more people into it as backers who are interested in the artwork, are interested in the idea behind it. All things considered, I think it's pretty well built out, but some of the things I would have touched on more so with this is the risks and challenges. There's probably more than just a little bit of that. Also, I always find it interesting to see when people go with more uncommon card creators. I think it usually, to me, speaks to potential of not really doing all the research into who you should print with. Sometimes I feel like with these kind of decks, it's like, let me Google make my own playing cards, and if it's not makeplayingcards.com, it's one of these other small printing houses who have you felt the quality of, do you know whether or not these cards feel good in hand, things like that. It's meant to be a playable deck, so you want something that's going to shuffle cleanly and be easy to deal for poker. With that in mind as well, $19 price point. Not bad for a good campaign.
Yeah.
So,
good luck.
Yeah.
If you're familiar with this world, it's definitely a fun little deck.
Yeah,
so.
no doubt. So Steve, why don't we take a quick word from our sponsor here, and then everyone can see what we picked this week for our fun campaigns.
Join us as we celebrate the marvelous and fascinating things that surround us, all in the palm of your hands. You will be mesmerized. Follow us on Instagram at Marvelous Decks and at marvelousdecks.com.
MuseumKits.com has teamed up with Lorenzo of Stockholm 17 to offer his award-winning House of the Rising Spade court cards in museum quality prints. These prints are printed on archival grade paper using pigment inks, which means they will last you a lifetime. I know I personally absolutely love the artwork of the House of the Rising Spades and can only imagine having a beautiful 8.5 by 11 or 11 by 14 print of these on my wall. So for anyone who would love to see these in their home, make sure to head to museumkits.com/S17. Link is down below. All right, Steve, ready for this, man?
I'm ready, man. Let's do it.
All right. I actually saw this one last week and I was intrigued, but I didn't pick it. And I'm kind of glad I didn't, because now I need something this week. And there were a couple little things I liked, but nothing stood out to me as much as this one.
This week was a disaster week trying to figure out
It was tough, man.
what to pick. And this is the same thing with my choice. I've seen it every week. And every week I'm like, I'm going to pick this. I'm going to pick this. And then something pops in that I like better.
Dude.
So this was like my fallback, and I like it. I'm finally picking it.
So this week's fun pick for me is the BLUETTI EP500 and EP500 Pro. The one thing I really love with this is the fact that it's like a new look on home generators. It's battery powered. You're not using fumes. It's meant to have that green aspect to it. But based on what they're talking about here, the power output seems impressive. And it's not just used for electronic devices. You could use this to actually power your refrigerator, which I think is absolutely amazing. I think in this day and age, when a lot of places don't allow you to have gas generators, this is a viable alternative where we still haven't maybe fully harnessed solar power or backup battery in that capacity. That's what really stood out to me, is this kind of fun, cool.
Pricey.
I'm sure, dude. Yeah, there you go. $3,200. Yeah, $3,200. But at the same time, a good generator is going to cost you several $100s, so maybe not $3,200. But But you figure you get it hooked into
Hey.
your house with an electrician and everything, it could cost you a good amount. I am I'm impressed, man. It seems like a lot of people, I'm curious what tier a lot of people backed for on this one, because they've raised $2.7 million with 688 backers, but
There's a lot of survivalist nerds out there that are like, I need this.
yeah, dude, that's probably where it goes to, but very cool. If I had 3,200 to throw around, I might back this, but otherwise I'm going to be saving that money for some fun upcoming playing card decks. Steve, you ready? Ready for this, man?
I'm ready, man.
I'm actually shocked you didn't pick this like weeks ago. I know you said you've been looking at it.
I was going to pick this my first week,
dude,
remember? But that towel just took over.
Every time I see it, I'm like, this is Steve. Like, this is quintessential Steve here. Let's get this. So Steve's campaign of the week is
the egg. The thinking egg. I love this thing. Dude, 428,000 for a tiny little thinking egg. You know, and those who have seen my campaign know, you know, I have my worry coin, and this is kind of along the same lines. This is where the worry coin, the no worry coin came from. It's kind of like your worry stone, you know, when you're stressed out, when you need something to fidget with, you know, you pull out this thinking egg and you rub it, you roll it around, play with it. Takes your mind off those stressful things. It's only $15.
Dude, that's really not bad. I mean, 20 shipped, but still, like, it's a cool little, like, little thing. I dig it.
I mean, look at them all. How much is the collection? Maybe I'll back it. I haven't backed it. Dude, look at that tiger's eye one.
Dude, the color.
That's pretty dope.
Best. One of each. $83.
Wow, I can't do that. I can do one. I can't justify spending $83 on a couple eggs.
Yeah, but like, dude, you
that
know,
I don't eat.
But like one, I think one is cool, especially for people who are trying to become more thoughtful. So
yeah, no, I think it's dope. I think, you know, it's definitely underrated, and not a lot of people do it, as far as I know. If they do, they don't talk about it. It's kind of like that thing that nobody talks about. But I think it's definitely beneficial.
Dude, if you want the full thing, it's 126.
That's because of the jade, dude.
Yeah, get you 9 eggs.
Yeah, it's the jade. That's what puts it over. But you know, I think it's just having one of these in your pocket when you're going through some funky times. It's always good to, you know, take it out and fidget with it.
No doubt.
Yeah, and it looks like it has cool structure, like cool little details on it.
Dude, no, I like the fact that it looks like it's carved. It's a little, yeah, it's not just a random like egg-shaped stone. There's attention to detail on it, which I think is cool. But 6,896 backers agree. So thanks so much, everyone, for checking out this week's What's on Kickstarter. We appreciate the understanding on dropping this on a Tuesday. We hope we didn't mess up your calendars too much. Make sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss next week's episode, which will be back on Tuesday.
Peace.